got it. We record these so that they can be posted at a later time on our AARP YouTube channel. Sure that. Great. Okay. We also want to let you know that this program is intended to provide general guidance, not specific legal or financial advice. Individual circumstances may differ and should be taken into consideration. Please consult a professional for advice regarding your own personal situation. So if you're not already familiar, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people to choose how they live as they age. With nearly 38 million members across the country and offices in every state, AARP works to strengthen communities and advocate for what matters most, with a focus on health security, financial resilience, and social connection. Today's program is going to focus on financial resiliency with a lens on fraud prevention, which is part of our social change agenda. And I'd like to introduce our program host today, Sarita Cardozo. Sarita is one of our talented volunteers who plays a number of roles actually here in Northern California for AARP as a district liaison and as an educator doing presentations on Fraud Watch, one of her favorite topics. She'll touch upon that in a little bit. So welcome, Sarita. Tell us, who do you see in the chat? Looks like we have folks from all over.
Yes, we do. We have quite a few people from San Jose, California, Danville, California. We even have somebody from Texas, actually, which is great to see. That's not it.
Great.
People are still checking in.
Sounds great. Well, it's a very important topic. And just to get an idea of who's in the audience and what they may have already experienced related to this topic, we're going to take a quick poll here, and then we'll introduce our speaker. Let's see, call up our poll. So you should see on the screen our first poll. Sarita, can you read out the question?
Yes. So first one is, number one is, I've had this experience, and you check all that apply. So you can perhaps a knock on the door from a stranger offering to fix something, a phone call offering a special deal on solar panel installation. And the third one is pressure to put down a deposit on a repair, a home improvement, or nervous not knowing if it's a legitimate business. And let's see, I think some responses are still coming in. Okay. So it seems like a lot of you have had the experience of somebody knocking on the door and a stranger offering to fix something in your house. 71% say that they've experienced that. And 71, also it's a tie, 71% say they're nervous not knowing if it's a legitimate business or not.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in the poll. I'm going to send the mic over to you now, Sarita, to introduce our guest.
Thank you, Sophie. So it's my pleasure to have our guest speaker, Jason Collom, join us today and shed some light on these predatory home improvement and repair frauds and scam situations, and inform us on how we can protect ourselves and our loved ones. Jason Collom is a senior inspector from the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. He has been a police officer 27 years and was assigned to patrol for 8 years before being promoted to detective. Prior to the District Attorney's Office, he has served as a special agent serving under Vice President Kamala Harris at the California Attorney General's Office. Jason is a founding member of an international work group established in 2012 to investigate and prosecute various overseas fraud syndicates that target ethnic Chinese communities across the globe. His groundbreaking work has been recognized by Interpol. Jason has also testified as an expert witness in US and Canada, and he has presented various white-collar organized crime case studies to law enforcement and prosecution professionals from over 15 countries. Jason has done a number of presentations for AARP, both in English and in Chinese, and we are so delighted to have him back. Welcome back, Jason. And before we jump in, Jason, can you tell us a bit about the role that you play in the district attorney's office and what the DA does as it relates to frauds and scams?
Absolutely. And thank you, AARP, for having me again year after year. We just need to get the word out. You'll know why at the end of this presentation, but I stress that this is pretty much the only way that we're able to try to stop fraud before it begins. So at the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, I'm assigned to the Special Prosecutions Unit. And what that means is that I am a police inspector whose partner is not another police inspector, but a prosecutor, an assistant district attorney. When we take cases, I do the initial interview with my partner, a DA, and we decide what we want to do with the case. And if we decide to proceed with the case, I would do the additional investigation and make the arrest when necessary, be there during the arraignment, the preliminary hearing, the jury selection and jury trial, right next to the DA while they're prosecuting the case. And afterwards, I'd even stick around for the sentencing phase of the criminal process. So I am the one stop for many of these white collar crime cases that involve seniors. Many times seniors get phone calls, bombarded by phone calls from all different sources claiming to be one person or another. I think you can tell the importance that it is to have one single point of contact with the San Francisco justice system. That would be me. And anybody else who contact this particular senior victim, I'd say, go ahead and take down their information. I'll contact them to see if they're legitimate. And I'll be, again, your single point of contact. I'll even take you to court and bring you home when we're done with the day, so you're not inconvenienced. And in terms of these types of cases, these cases are brought on by the California Contractor State Licensing Board, short CSLB. CSLB maintains their own investigations division, and they are some of the finest investigators I have ever worked with in my career. They have sworn investigators, meaning gun-carrying peace officers who are detectives, particular for these Contractor State Licensing Board cases, and they have non-gun carrying investigators, and they both do the same job and they do it very well. The assembly line is that the Contractor State Licensing Board investigators will do a very comprehensive investigation. And upon the completion of the investigation, they will present their case to one of our prosecutors in White Collar Crime Special Prosecutions Unit for charging. At that point, I would step in, review the documents that were turned in by the Contractor State Licensing Board, and 99% of the time, their cases are so complete, there is no additional work necessary other than for me to write a cover page affidavit and swear to their arrest warrant and go ahead and make the arrest. Again, I want to stress, in the almost 3 decades that I've been a law enforcement officer, I have had the pleasure to work with many state, federal, local, and foreign law enforcement agencies. But I want to stress that the Contractor State Licensing Board detectives are some of the best, most thorough investigators I've ever met in my career. So once the case gets presented, if we think that there's some more that we have to do, like additional search warrants for bank records, I would go ahead and do that. And to save time for the investigators from the state, I usually testify for them in the initial preliminary hearing, and we would bring in the state board investigator when it comes down to trial. So again, once the state contractor license board investigator turns over the case, I become the single point of contact for the victim from then on. And my partner, DA, and I work with the state contractor licensing board to get the case processed through our system.
Thank you, Jason. It's great to know about your role and the efforts being made to not just prevent and stop frauds and scams, but also to prosecute these predators. And we're really looking forward to learning more about what you do today.
Yeah, so in preparation for this presentation, I looked back at my cases that I've investigated in the last 11 years that I've been at this office and receiving and reviewing these types of cases. Out of the a little bit more than 20 cases that I reviewed, there was not one where the victim was under 50 years old. And so that's kind of to kick off where we're going with this. And I want to start off with your very basic run-of-the-mill case study. Hold on to that slide. That's going to be at the end. So I want to start off with a very run-of-the-mill case study. And this one, I think some of your audience member, or maybe even you might have heard it happen to friends and family. Basic, just to give you a timeline also, is that, again, Contractor State Licensing Board, they're really good, but unfortunately, with everything that's going on, that went on in the past few years with COVID, the toughness of trying to go out in the field and doing work, and also really hard to hire qualified detectives and investigators, they're pretty backlogged. So I'm going right off of this case here, just so I don't get the timeline wrong. Just to give you an idea, this case was reported to the Contractor State Licensing Board in September of 2019. It happened in March of 2019. It wasn't until September of 2022 that the CSLB investigator was able to contact the victim and start investigating this case. So there is a lag in reporting and investigating. And this 3 years, unfortunately, it seems like the new norm. It used to be when I first started looking at these cases, the Contractor State Licensing Board would be able to assign an investigator, put a case together within the first 6 months of the report. But I've seen it just dragging longer and longer. And this one took 3 years before somebody, a detective, was able to get to the reporting person. The victim in this case was having some work done at his house by a licensed contractor. And obviously this victim was pretty happy with this contractor's work. And the victim noticed that there's some drainage issue with his house. Turns out it was attributed to the waste pipe that connects his house to the street. So the victim asked his contractor, who's already doing work at the house, do you know any plumbers, or can you recommend any plumbers that can fix this issue? The contractor says, well, yes, try, let's call him John. Try John and see what he says. John, the plumber, comes out, presents a business card to the homeowner, the victim. business card has got the name of the business and the number, the ID number of the Contractor State Licensing Board ID, contractor number on there. Looks pretty legit. This was middle March of 2019. On that same day that this plumber, John, came out, the homeowner had a verbal agreement with this plumber to do the work for $4,000. That same day, this plumber collected $1,000 deposit, in which he returned 4 days later and started digging a hole. And John dug the hole and replaced the piping with PVC. The homeowner inspects the work and asks John, it was a cast iron pipe. Is it really okay to replace this cast iron waste pipe with PVC? John didn't answer. But John says, hey, look, I bought materials. Can you please give me the remaining balance of $3,000? The homeowner, the victim, wrote the balance, gave the balance to John, the plumber. Despite not being satisfied with the non-answer of his question, hey, why did you replace my cast iron pipe with a PVC pipe? So when the homeowner, after paying the complete $4,000 as they agreed on verbally to John, the plumber, says, hey, are you going to tell me more about this PVC pipe? Can you show me some tech specifications of how this PCV pipe is going to work? Make me feel better. Can you come out and fill this hole that you dug? No answer. Email, text, calls, no answer. And John, the plumber, never reappeared again. And it wasn't until around this time that the homeowner decided that he would go to the Contractor State Licensing Board website to check on John the plumber's contractor license. And it was at that time that the victim found out that John's contractor license has been revoked since 2016. Wait a bit more, and now next month comes around, and John still hasn't reappeared and hasn't answered the homeowner's call. The homeowner finally said, hey, look, I looked you up. You're not a licensed contractor, and you need to give me a refund. And so a month after this hole was dug, after this $4,000 was exchanged, the homeowner and John the plumber agreed to a settlement payment of $3,500, which John mailed to the homeowner. So when the homeowner went to cash this check, $3,500, it was bounced for insufficient funds. And it wasn't until 5 months later that the homeowner decided to report this matter to the Contractor State Licensing Board via their website. And at the end, the loss for the homeowner was $4,000. The homeowner had to retain another plumber, who had to remove the work that wasn't done properly and do the job properly for $12,000. So at the end of the day, it's $16,000 out of the homeowner's pocket, but the homeowner also was at risk because John wasn't a licensed contractor, probably did not have workers' comp for himself, workers' comp insurance for himself or the workers that work for him at this homeowner's property. So if John the plumber or his helper would have been injured while working at this homeowner's property, the homeowner would be responsible for their injuries and medical costs. The other part of it too is that if this work required a permit. But since John was unable to get a permit because he's not a licensed contractor, the homeowner also risks being fined by the city or the county that they live in for the work that was performed without a permit. So again, we're not just talking about the monetary loss right there. We're talking about a huge liability risk. So moving on to a little bit more egregious case, which was it's 66-year-old couple who live in Davis, California, own a property in San Francisco. Their family home, their old family home in San Francisco that their parents passed away in. And just to give everybody an idea, Davis is probably about 2 hours from San Francisco with no traffic on a good day. So through a friend, the victim retained a contractor, a 56-year-old contractor. Contractor showed them a business card with a license number on there. And at the end of the day, they agreed upon a $65,000 contract to go in and renovate this house in San Francisco, with work starting in November. The homeowners knew this was going to be a huge project, and because the house has never been renovated, it's one of the turn of the century San Francisco houses, so they knew it's going to be a big project. And they trusted this contractor because he was very personable, and in fact, they liked him so much that they started inviting him to lunch with them, to baseball games with them, and also even invited him to attend their children's, invited the contractor to attend the homeowner's children's wedding. Because this relationship went on from November of one year till November of the next year. And with the change order that was expected by the homeowners, the final contract came up to about $110,000. But in the beginning, when they agreed upon the $65,000 renovation, the contractor asked for and received a $2,000 down payment. And we'll talk about why that's not okay. And over the course of the next 11 months, this 56-year-old contractor received $110,000 in total from these homeowners. And so, because these victims live 2.5 hours away from San Francisco and they're older, they don't come to San Francisco very often anymore. So after almost a year, they stopped by the project site and found that it looked pretty much the same as when the project demolition started about 10 months ago. And so the homeowners, of course, started chasing after this contractor saying, how come there hasn't been any work done? All we see is demolition and removal of stuff. We haven't seen any type of remodeling at all. Now, mind you, this is now a family friend who's attended their children's wedding. Well, the contractor stopped returning their calls. And at that time, again, it's a year has passed by this time. The homeowners went on the contractor state licensing board website to check on that contractor license. Well, it turns out that's not a real number. But however, when they Googled that number, they found out that that was a license number for a state of California gardener. So the 56-year-old contractor wasn't actually a contractor. He was licensed to do gardening work. So the homeowners ended up filing a complaint with the contractor state licensing board, filing a police report with the local police agency. And the unlicensed contractor was charged. We filed 8 counts against him, mostly felony counts, and he pled guilty. And the judge did order restitution from this unlicensed contractor of $110,000. But the homeowners never received any of that money back. Even though this unlicensed contractor had a very nice house along the peninsula area that's probably worth about $2.5 million. Well, turns out he lived there with his ex-wife and his son, and he divorced her about 5 years ago and still lives in the house with her. So he had no assets other than the beat up pickup truck that he used to do these remodeling projects. So the homeowners were never able to recover their $110,000, and they have had to bring in another contractor to fix everything that this original unlicensed contractor did. And along that, the line of that, they also were cited by city building inspection for having done something, well, for the unlicensed contractor doing something wrong. So again, not a good ending. Third scenario involves two homeowners, two sets of married couples, super nice folks. Kids moved out of the house and they're now ready to remodel their houses. One of them, interesting, is that her house is probably about 8 years old by that time, but the original builders of the house did not build the house properly. So every time it rains, the sheets of water will come down the wall from the front of the house. So it was like described to me as like a running waterfall in the front of the house. Of course, they chased after the builders for the first couple of years to try to fix this issue. And the builders always send out some unknown subcontractors, but they never actually fixed the issue. And then the builders eventually went out of business and went into bankruptcy. So the homeowners never gotten anything from the builders, even though there's a warranty that came with the builders. The homeowners shopped around to contractors and no contractor wanted to touch that project. One day, one of the homeowners drove by a neighbor's house and saw a big sign outside described as 3.5 foot by 4 foot sign, looking very professional, saying, we're the builders, this is our contractor license number, give us a call. So the homeowners, being desperate after contractors, one after another, turned them down. They were so glad when this contractor that they saw the billboard from answered their call and agreed to come out to look at the project. The contractor not only agreed to come out and look at the project, the contractor says, I can fix this. Work started. And scaffolding went up. The contractor put out same sign out on their lawn. And work's going good. The homeowners were satisfied. Meanwhile, about 3 or 4 blocks away, unbeknownst to the first set of homeowners, this particular unlicensed contractor also went into an agreement with them to do some painting and some remodeling of the house inside and outside. So the second set of homeowners, they spoke with a friend of theirs saying, this is the kind of work we want to do. We just want new drywall and a new door put in inside our house. So the friend says, a few years ago, this man helped me do drywall and he's pretty good. So give him a call. He's a contractor. So the homeowners gave the same unlicensed contractor that the first set of homeowners retained a call, and he comes out and says, yeah, I can put up the drywall for you. I can go ahead and frame that new door for you. So while he was doing the second job, the job was done so well in terms of the drywall and the door that the homeowner says, you know, our staircase up front, it's looking pretty ratty. You're a contractor, you can work on that, right? Oh, sure. So he started working on that. And while he was working on that, the homeowner says, well, you know what, while we have a contractor here and he seems like a great guy, he's trustworthy, he shows up and his work on the drywall looks good. Why don't we ask him whether he wants to, or he has time to do upstairs bathroom too? Well, the contractor agreed to that too. So while he's doing the demo work on the first bathroom upstairs, he's such a great guy, so charismatic, had these homeowners just becoming their best friends. Homeowner says, hey, you know what, while you're here and you seem like a great guy, you're doing your job, we have a downstairs bathroom we'd like to remodel too. Can you also do that? Oh, absolutely. So at some point, when it came to painting the outside, the contractor says, look, I have a special deal with the scaffolding people. Can you come down with me? They will only accept $1,200 in cash from you. So it's a huge discount because if I pay the scaffolding person, I'm going to have to charge you a markup. And it's better if you just go ahead and pay cash for the scaffolding. Sure. So the homeowner went to different ATMs and collected enough money to pay $1,200 to the scaffolding company who showed up and put up the scaffolding. So about a month and a half into this project, everything torn apart, nothing's completed other than the original drywall and door that this contractor frame. Everything's apart. This contractor stopped showing up. There were workers that showed up. They kept working, but about 3 days into the workers working, well, they also stopped coming. And so the homeowner actually ran into one of the workers that was there and says, hey, what's going on? Well, your guy, the contractor, hasn't paid us for a week already. And this is supposed to be a daily payment, cash payment. So we're not going to come back and do the job anymore. Okay, so it turns out this contractor was just hiring day laborers and paying them cash, no insurance, no workers' comp, don't know who they are, no formal training in remodeling to do all this work. And to pour salt on the wound, turns out the homeowners weren't aware, but they had a mechanic's lien put on their house because one of the subcontractors who the homeowners paid the contractor to pay the subcontractor, and that's supposed to be done. Well, the contractor never paid the subcontractor. So now the homeowners had a lien, a mechanic's lien on their house to pay the subcontractor. At the end of the day, both projects, two sets of homeowners, this unlicensed contractor got away with $65,000 in cash. And one of the things that the homeowners did is went on early on, they did go on the contractor state license board website to confirm that's a good contractor license. They confirmed that that's the address associated with that contractor, even though the contractor name is not the same as the contractor that came to their house. So these homeowners both assume that because they have heard that there are contractors that work for license holders, and seeing that it's the same address out of Treasure Island in San Francisco, they said they felt pretty certain that this was a licensed contractor, the same one that they're dealing with from the CSLB website. Well, when this contractor stopped showing up, all this work was left undone. One of the homeowners decided to write a letter to the license holder on Treasure Island say, hey, your contractor did not finish their work. The homeowner got a call from the license owner on Treasure Island. Well, it turns out this man, this unlicensed contractor, rented the back area of a licensed construction company. And his unit was, let's say, instead of 133A, which is the contracting company's address, it's 133B, being the back office at this licensed contractor's house. Pretty sophisticated unlicensed contractor. Went to the length of actually getting an office space within another contractor's office as the cover story. So seemed very legitimate to the victims. This case went on for 7 years. 3 assistant district attorneys turned over during this period. And because it's not a crimes against persons case, and the suspect, the defendant, is not in custody, it's a financial crime case. Even though the events happened in 2011, this did not go to court until 2018, 7 years later. Again, not to blame the contractor state license board for being slow. They were on it within 5 or 6 months of report. They had the case ready and presented. But the court system, it's a bit slow when it comes to financial crimes. So that's where we are with that. And the third prosecutor who prosecuted this case went to court, actually got a judgment for the victims to recover their $65,000, of course, split between the two for whatever work or whatever payments that they make, $65,000. So the defendant actually was able to come up with the money. He was also a reverend at a church, and the church members pitched in the $65,000. He wrote the check, put it in his lawyer's impound account to be distributed to our victims at the next court date. It's great. We told the victims, look, next court date, which is next month, the money is there in that account. We looked at the balance. His lawyer is going to give us a cashier's check, and we'll deposit that into the city account, and we'll disperse it to you immediately. That's great. And the victims were saying, closure. 2011, 2018 is closure. Thank you for staying on this, and thank you for bringing all this to an end. Well, we got a call the day before the settlement, the final settlement court date. So apparently, this unlicensed contractor was the driver of the van for his church group, and they were going somewhere in the Central Valley. And the driver, this defendant, the unlicensed contractor, was under the influence of drugs, and he got into a major car wreck, and he was killed. So now the defendant, who ordered restitution for our victims, had the money in the impound account. Well, guess what? It's not in our hands. So now the people who are the family members of the people who were in the van with him are pursuing him, and he's deceased. So the lawyer said, hey, look, it's not final. The last court date was gonna be final. So sorry, can't release that fund. So now my victims, after all of those years, after appearing in court, speaking to us, living with this pain of trusting someone and having them walk out, ultimately did not get their money back because he was still behaving badly and got himself killed right before he was supposed to turn over the restitution payment. On the last one, it's egregious. It's hard. These are the cases that impacted me a lot in the last in my career. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'll remember these cases forever. This next case study, 92-year-old female living by herself in San Francisco in the Richmond district. She saw that her neighbor was having their roof done, and she figured she probably needs her roof done too. So she walked next door, talked to the contractor who was working on the roof, and says, "Hey, are you a licensed contractor? Because I want my roof done too." You say, "Oh yeah, sure, I can do that. You know, $15,000, I can change over your roof, right?" And so the lady's like, "That's great. You know, when can you start?" "As soon as I'm finished with this." So the project starts. This 92-year-old lady was pretty happy because she didn't have to go far to find a roofer, and he seems like a great guy. So he collected down payment on the project, on the $15,000 project. Not all of it, at least he knows better. So he's up there taking things apart, you know, putting on tiles or whatever he was doing. And the lady, the 92-year-old lady, sees that there were debris in this debris hauler that he rented to park on his driveway. And so the job was supposedly complete, and the roofer told the 92-year-old lady, saying, "Hey, look, your job is complete, and so, you know, you should pay me." Well, the 92-year-old homeowner says, "Hey, look, my other neighbor walked by and said, you know, there should be a lot more debris in that debris box if he actually replaced your roof, because and I just don't see from the street level what tiles were replaced or whether the roof was really done. You should really ask this guy." So this 92-year-old homeowner asked this roofer, saying, "Hey, look, other neighbor told me that he doesn't think you did your job. Can you show me what you've done?" "Hey, look, lady, I did my job. You need to pay me the rest of the money." And the lady says, "Look, I can't pay you the rest of the money because I just want you to show me what you've done. Give me some receipts on the roof tiles that you have. At least give me some kind of warranty through the roof tile manufacturer." Roofer says, "Hey, look, give me the money or else." And so the lady insisted on not paying this roofer. Roofer takes off, leaves a bunch of debris there at the house. And the contractor state license board investigator shows up to talk to this homeowner. And it was during the rain season. And the contractor state license board detective says, "Oh my God, lady, you've got water running down your wells. What is going on? And why are you burning newspapers in your fireplace to keep warm? What happened to your electricity?" Well, the homeowner told the the CSLB investigator, "Look, I really don't know what happened. She's kind of in and out. And but when I refused to pay this roofer, I heard somebody on the roof a few nights later pounding away. I just didn't know what it was. I was too scared to go outside." Well, turns out we don't know. We will never know. Somebody punched holes in this 92-year-old victim's roof, and which caused rainwater to run into the house along the walls, flooding her house and killing the electrical supply to the house. And she just, at that time, she just didn't know what to do. She didn't know why. And her consciousness was just slipping quickly, so quickly that it just wasn't, she just wasn't mentally there because of this such a stressful situation. And so, of course, we contacted the Adult Protective Services and the Ombudsman, and they had to remove her from the house because it just was not safe for her, and she wasn't able to care for herself. And unfortunately, very, very, very soon after this meeting with her, the state board investigator meeting with her, she passed away. So at the end of the day, because there is no victim, the victim has passed away. At the end of the day, we were able to only charge this suspect with contracting without a license. So that's it's shocking to me after working all these years in this case. It was heartbreaking, and that's why I'm here, and I want to pass on that why it's important to do your due diligence and prevent you or someone you know or a loved one from falling victim to this type of scam. So if you can cue the slide on prevention, please.
Yes, this is very scary stuff. And I think there are folks out there who are worried about reporting to law enforcement and whether they've been scammed or become a victim of fraud. And many people might be embarrassed to share that they fell for a scam or feel like it won't make a difference. So if you could also inform us why it's important to report a scam and if there is a time frame within which they need to or not. It sounds like you can report it at any time.
Yeah, and I want to stress again that sometimes people feel that going to a government agency's website, clicking on a report button, it doesn't do anything. And I know where they're coming from. I've had that experience myself, but from personal experience, professional experience from working with the Contractor State License Board, they review every single one of these complaints and they assign these complaints to a very, very capable investigator. So please, we'll put the resources here and also at the end of the presentation, so your audience member can go ahead and click that website if they need it. So one of the things, the first thing in terms of these types of cases, it goes with any elder abuse, financial abuse cases, is affinity. Just because they are friendly, just because they spend time, they speak with you, it seems like they're interested in your life, in your family, and they identify themselves with you. Oh, wow, you're from Davis? So am I. And you like the Giants? I love the Giants. Doesn't mean, or my cousin or my sister used this person and they were satisfied with the job that was performed. It doesn't mean that they're qualified to perform the work that you ask him to do. License, please go to the Contractor State Licensing Board website, which is listed as the number 3 bullet point, and confirm that they hold a current license and that it is actually them who's holding this license. Look at the history of complaints. You will see all that on the website. And why, if you, out of all my case studies, I think you know why a state licensed contractor is really important. They're going to have insurance for the company insurance for the work that they're doing for you. And so in case it goes sour, something goes wrong, you can fall back on claiming with their insurance company. Workers' comp, all these folks that show up at your house, in your house, on your property. Well, guess what? You're responsible for them unless they are working for a licensed contractor. So if the licensed contractor or the unlicensed contractor who can't buy insurance or work comp insurance for the workers, you're ultimately responsible for their health and safety while they're working on your property. Make sure each and every person who shows up at your house, at your job site, has proof of workers' comp insurance. Get that. And do due diligence and check on that insurance. Contact the insurance issuer, who should be listed in the contract to confirm that these people are in fact insured. Please, you're the boss when it comes to remodeling, when it comes to home improvement, fixing anything. Just remember, you're the boss. Treat this as finding the right employee best fit for your company. Get at least 3 bids, talk to them, get everything in writing, lay the 3 bids out in front of you, and compare. While you have the bids, you can also see what their history looks like. Google them at the same time to see which one it's got problems, which one's got less problems, whatever. Please get at least 3 bids. Get references from each bidder. Review their past work in person. Don't just say, hey, look, can you give me numbers to 3 people who you did work for recently? And I'll call them and talk to them. No, if they're a reputable contractor, they would have had projects close to where you reside. Please go out there, talk to the homeowners, maybe even compare the work orders that the estimate that you got versus the work orders that they approved and paid for, and see how satisfied they are with the work. See if they've had any problems with permits, any problems with tardiness in terms of these contractors and subcontractors showing up. Please do your due diligence. This is the only way to protect yourself. You're the boss. Make sure all project expectations, including permits and fees, are in writing, and only sign the contract if you completely understand the terms. Case in point, some folks go to get their cars fixed, and the service writers start spewing out technical terms about a car, knowing that most lay people don't understand, but they don't want to say they don't understand. So they just nod and say, okay, well, this is big. You live here. You're going to be here longer than you're going to own your car. Know and understand each and every point of that contract because you're signing it. And let's talk about this particular contract. Once a contract is signed, if you're under 65 years old, even though the contract is agreed upon, is signed, per California state law, you have 3 days to cancel without any fees, and they have to refund your down payment. If you're 65 years or older in California, you get 2 more days to cancel this contract. So you get 5 days. If you think about it, you do your due diligence research online, you go to talk to the prior job sites, and you're not satisfied with who you retain via contract 5 days before, you have a right to cancel that contract and get your down payment without any punishment. And so this is California state law. For the 65-year and older, it's been since, I believe, 2021 to protect our more vulnerable citizens. Insurance, I mean, I found this, I talked about this. It's super important. Just think about how much an ambulance emergency room service is going to cost you. Because if that uninsured worker fall off your roof, break something, needs to get on in an ambulance and go to the hospital, they don't have any workers' comp insurance. You as the homeowner is financially responsible for treatment of that injured worker. The next one, this is tough, and this is really tough. State law allows contractor to collect 10% of the total cost of a job, or $1,000, whichever is less. So what that's saying is that a contractor can at max collect only $1,000 from you. Here's the example of how it works. Let's say you go into a $30,000 contract with a contractor. 10% of $30,000, it's going to be $3,000. By state law, that contractor cannot collect more than $1,000 of down payment from you. Okay, so $1,000 is the max. Let's say your contract is for $9,000. 10% of that will be $900. Your contractor cannot collect more than $900 from you because it is 10% of the total contract. And always avoid cash payments. In court, paper wins. If you don't have a piece of paper to prove you made the payment, if you don't have it written down, if you don't have a signed document, it did not happen. You can show ATM withdrawal slips all day long, but you're not going to be able to convince a jury that that cash that you took out went to pay for this contractor. Pay in check, pay in credit card, paper trail. Because again, these cases don't get to a courtroom 3 to 5 years from when it first gets investigated. By that time, memory lapse. The only thing that you have is going to be the paper to prove that this event even happened. Avoid letting the payments get ahead of the work. That was cut off for some reason. Again, inspect the work. When they ask you for the next payment, inspect the work. Even if your original contract says that you're going to pay this person an X amount of money at the end of every work week, make sure you walk through and have your contractor explain exactly what they did, what materials they bought that costs that much money that you're going to pay for. If you say, if the payment schedule says you got to pay this contractor $800 every week for the time of the contract until the full payment is made, make sure you got $800 worth of work done that particular week before you write the check, before you give them the payment. Because once that payment gets ahead of the work, that's when I see homeowners get into real trouble. Records, keep a job file of all papers relating to your project, including payments. Again, if it's not written down, it did not happen. And nowadays with computers and phones, what's nice about that is it's hard to keep all this paperwork in check. The best way, of course, is to have a dedicated binder with tabbies and indexing. But secondary to that, because most people don't have the patience for that nowadays, take pictures of these contracts, of these payments, because when you take a picture, it locks a date and a time. and you can go back and print out the data information from the picture saying this date and time, it's when this happened. Keep records electronically that way, if you don't have a patience to set up a file. One of the job sites from the two homeowners where the unlicensed contractor was using somebody else's address as his in his contracting company. Well, one of the homeowners was excellent because she was the chief financial officer for a major restaurant group before she retired. So she kept spreadsheets of payments, spreadsheets of work, and she was able to show us when we showed up, this is exactly what happened. These are payments made, and this is the work that we got. This is the work that we did not get. These are things that we paid for. And lastly, avoid making final payment until you're satisfied with the job. Please go back to your original contract, go back to all of your change orders, review them. I know after a long period of having people over at your house, having your life interrupted with the construction project, all you want to do is get these folks out so you can live your life. Well, hold on real quick. You've already suffered through a few months the length of this project. Spend an extra couple of days, review all the work on your own, pick out all of the issues with a piece of blue tape here and there. Right? You can even write notes on the blue tape saying, hey, I don't think this should be like this or this should be like that. Walk through with your contractor. If they're a good licensed contractor who's experienced, they won't feel bad about you pointing out their mistakes. To them, it's like you just help them in quality control. They appreciate that. Don't be shy about pointing out what you think it's not right. Walk through it and make sure they fix it. Make sure you're satisfied with it. Make sure the code inspectors are satisfied with it before you make that final payment. Because again, from just my small sample of case studies, zero of those victims ever received restitution that was due to them. So all the money that they invested in these remodeling contracts went away. I want your audience to see this is the homepage of the California Contractor State License Board. And if you take a look at the circles, you can click on the file a complaint part. Next slide. And once you click on the file the complaint, you will see the online submission button on the bottom. Go ahead and hit start if you're there. And you can fill out the form. It's very, very self-explanatory. And the narrative is going to be really important. And if the more supporting documents that you have, the better it's going to be for you. Some of our victims come into our office and set down 7 boxes and says, hey, look, victim of a fraud case. All of this proves that I'm a victim of fraud. Well, it's hard for me to go through 7 boxes to try to figure out what the crime is. Help yourself as the victim. If you fall victim to something, you're the person who best narrate it. Save yourself the hassle and the headache of having to repeat yourself over and over again. Write a good summary, reference attachments and other materials that you might have. Put a package case, present a package case to the police, to the prosecuting agency, and it would just help streamline the entire process.
Thank you, Jason. Let's check the chat. Sophie, do we have some questions that we can address? Sophie, are you there?
Sophie, you're on mute. You're muted.
Hi. Yes, we do have a couple of questions. Do other cities have senior Jason. There's a question coming from Danville.
Sophie, you're low. I don't know if you,
The question is, do other cities have senior inspectors like Jason? The question is coming from Danville.
Yeah, we're county. So San Francisco just happens to be a city and county. So we're actually the county DA's office, city and county in San Francisco. But Contra Costa County and all the other county DA's offices would have white collar crime inspectors or DA investigators who deal with this type of cases. But again, the leading investigating agency for these types of cases, it's going to be the California Contractor State Licensing Board, and we don't pick up the case until they assemble the case and they present it to us for charging.
Thank you. There was also another question. If you go to the licensing site, do they have photos of the contractors so you could identify them?
No, they don't. And nowadays, what's great is Google is your friend. It's hard not to be able to find somebody's photo online, especially if somebody owns a business, contracting business. It's one of those things where there's a lot of personal connections. I mean, you've got to be pretty charismatic to be in that type of business. So a lot of times they would have a face attached to their business to kind of steer people towards them. Again, it's really important affinity wise for the scammers as well as for the people who are doing business, because if you can identify with them, if you can put a face to them, then you're more likely to trust them. And one of the things that I found very useful is that if you, let's say you Google a company name. If you Google, let's say Bank of America, you're going to get about 85 pages of results relating to Bank of America, right? And if you Google a licensed contractor company, you're probably able to find a couple pages of headings on that company. But let's say you Google a company that doesn't have a license, you might not be able to find too many headers, too many websites addressing these people, other than consumer complaining that they ran out on them or whatever. So just the number of Google results related to a particular business should tell you something about that business also.
Thank you. Well, we are at the end of our time with you, Jason. We do want to share a bit about some of AARP's resources. So I'm going to turn it back to Sarita.
Thank you, Sophie. So the AARP Fraud Watch Network, and you can see the website over here on the screen. This is a free resource for everyone. You don't even have to be a member of AARP to visit this. You can learn how to proactively spot many different kinds of frauds and scams. And if you need help, if you think you've been scammed, please call the toll-free number that's listed up there. You can also find out, you can reach the helpline and get guidance from our fraud specialists if you've been targeted. And this service is also available for free in Spanish. You can also help fight you can help fight the frauds and scams by reporting it to the scam tracking map when you are aware of a fraud or a scam in your neighborhood. And next slide, please. Sadly, veterans are often a prime target for frauds and scams, and we've developed a special page for veterans as well. And the link is being placed in the chat now. And finally, the next slide, please. Next slide, please, Atasha. Next slide, please. Thank you. Finally, for those of you who are interested in learning more about the mindset of scammers and fraudsters, the architecture of crime, how they were caught, there is a podcast that is put out by AARP once a week, and it's called The Perfect Scam. And these are interviews with people, victims who have been scammed, as well as it gives you insight into how the scammer things because we have interviews with scammers who have turned around and describe what techniques that they use to scam people. And that brings us to the end. Many thanks to our guest speaker, Senior Inspector Jason Collom, for sharing his expertise and experience, and our ARP staff for helping us behind the scenes today. Sophie has a final message before we close out.
Right.
Sophie?
Thank you, Sarita. You know, we've had the pleasure of working with Jason for the last 5 years. He has shared with us so many great tips and sobering stories, quite honestly, about things that have happened. And hopefully these tips will help you prevent from being a victim of scam or your loved ones. Jason has announced that he's retiring, but don't get too far away. We're going to bring you back. We really appreciate all the work and advice that you've given us, Jason. Take good care. Best wishes to you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, and happy
AOP. Thank you.
retirement.
All right. This concludes today's program. Thanks for joining us. There was a question in the chat. Yes, we will be sharing this on our AARP YouTube channel. You will be getting an email that will give you clicks to the PowerPoints that were shared today, and you'll also be able to see the YouTube program. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.